To the Inner Entrepreneur podcast. I'm Paul Ryan, and today we have a very special guest, Ross Culliton. Ross not only is a friend of mine, he's also founder of Roddy, and Ross has an amazing story to tell. From being a high-paid exec for KPMG and coming up with this great or mad idea that he would become an entrepreneur. I have no idea why he thought that would be an easier or more fun, but it's what he decided to do. It led to a fascinating journey that I think will just be really interesting and full of insight for any existing entrepreneur or budding entrepreneur. I've heard the story a couple of times and it always enthralls me. So Ross, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend some time and chat about this.
Thanks a lot for having me, Paul. Excited to do it.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Start off by telling us, who is Ross Culliton?
Yeah, so I'm Ross Culliton and I'm the founder of a company called Rudy. We make custom merch for big brands. So when someone is celebrating a huge occasion like 4th of July or Christmas party or something like that, we provide merch for that. It's all fully sustainable. We plant a tree for every item we make. I'm mad passionate about the environment and about the positive change we can make. And we're going 5 years now, and we've been scaling really, really quickly, and thoroughly enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. It's interesting, as we just digress for a second, that you're obviously making a lot of clothing for customers. Isn't that really difficult to do in a sustainable way? I know the environment is massively important to you. That's got to be really difficult to do in a sustainable way.
It is, and it's incredibly scary topic for people to get into. So I don't beat people over the head with it all the time. But generally, right, the sustainability stuff, people switch off as soon as you talk about it, right? Immediately switch off, and I'm no different than anyone else. What we try to do is we take away all the hassle from people, because you're trying to figure out, is this the right fabric? Is that the right fabric? All that. I have people who are really passionate about that. They go and work out what the best fabric available right now. There's no perfect fabric. We try and make really good stuff that people actually wear. So there's no point in me making a load of hemp t-shirts that nobody wants to wear.
That's
right?
it.
So we make really good stuff that people actually want to wear. And then we do everything as sustainably as possible. And we plant a tree for every item we make. So we planted in the 5 years so far, we're at 450,000 trees. And we're on a journey to plant 1.5 million trees by the end of 2020. So what we try to do is just take all that noise and all that hassle of sustainability and stuff. Leave us worry about that. We look at all that stuff. It's incredibly dull and incredibly scary, incredibly boring. And we're trying super companies to say, look, you can make a really positive impact. We'll do the best that's possibly out there. Nothing is perfect, but generally we have a positive impact on the environment and the stuff we make.
Okay. It's of course, none of that is the reason why I asked you on the podcast. Fascinating all as it is, but it is interesting to me because, I mean, part of why I started the Inner Entrepreneur podcast was to have discussion about the inner world of entrepreneurship, because as you know, I'm 40 years in business, and it's been a very rewarding, entertaining, and sometimes terrifying journey. But the hardest parts for me have been overcoming the personal challenges that I faced. I mean, there's all the how-to of business that we all have to figure out, and that so many people talk about. There's books, my bookshelves are filled with them. And it turns out, as I look back over 40 years, they weren't the hardest part. The hardest part was figuring out the inner journey of what goes on inside. So that's really my fascination in doing the podcast. But also, I think a lot of people look at successful people, CEOs and business owners, and there's something other, particularly if you want to start a business, you look at successful people out there. And both you and I have talked to many entrepreneurs, and once you get to talk to them, you realize there's normal and there's terrified, as everyone else. But it's also really good to hear that we're not all just about making a buck and, capitalism. That some people run business are really concerned about things like the environment. But I started off by talking about you having this, I was going to say cushy, maybe it wasn't cushy, but you had this really good job in KPMG, and high paid, all of these wonderful things. And I'm wondering what on earth tempted you to, it must have been a moment of madness when you decided, keep the check, I don't do this anymore. So what on earth was going on in your mind to lead to that decision?
Yeah, I sometimes think back and I wonder what the hell. So
Yeah, I'd say you
I
too.
I joined KPMG, worked up my way up, and became a manager and working really hard. I was in the consulting part. KPMG is a big four accounting firm, but I was in the consulting part. And I was working 65, 70 hours a week. And to be honest, I was enjoying the work. I was enjoying this, working with great people. It's, really good. And 2010 came, and as we all know, the world fell apart. Ireland was hit way worse than anywhere else nearly in the world. The whole place, like we were insolvent. But we were insanely busy in the consulting part. The rest of the business was doing very badly, the audit and tax department. So they immediately cut 10% of all the employees and they cut 10% of salaries. They cancelled bonuses. So my salary was on a very good 6-figure salary. I suddenly, with 30-40% of my salary was gone. So a few weeks later, I went in and I said, look, I'm leaving. And they said, all right, where are you going? I said, I'm going to set up a Christmas sweater company, Christmas jumper company, to use the terms interchangeably. But so I told the partners, and I think people thought I was having some sort of breakdown. And there's 15% unemployment in Ireland at the time. We got from 0% to 15%. And I was going off to set up a Christmas jumper company.
You talk about the cutting salary and stuff. That I mean, look, I remember that time very well. I wasn't working for a big consultancy firm. I ran a small business, and it was extraordinarily difficult. Our business fell, I think, by 60%, so it was mayhem. But was it the money that triggered you, or I mean, had you already been thinking about this idea of setting up your own business, or were you? I mean, prior to that, were you completely satisfied? Was it just the money? You said, I don't want to take this pay cut, or what was it?
So I started. I went to college, right? And I thought you went to college. I wanted to do business, so I thought they'd teach me how to set up a business when I went to college. I always wanted my own business. So I said, oh, I'll go and study business and they'll teach me how to set up a business, right? Now, it seems common sense. They told me nothing about that. I came out of there and ended up training as an accountant. I was like, what the hell happened here? So that was always in my mind, right? I always wanted to set up a business.
So from day one, you had this urge, I want to run my own business.
Yeah, and I was going around to colleges and stuff and trying to find the best place to teach me. And they
how
told
to
me
set
they'd
up your
teach
own
me how to
business
set up a
course.
business, right?
Yeah.
And it would make sense that you would do that in a university. But of course, we know now that's not the thing to do. It's to go off and just try and set it up yourself. But so I ended up coming back and forth, and I was in my head. And in 2009, there was this thing in Ireland called the 12 pubs, it was a dark time in Ireland. People were going out there, do this drinking game. Essentially, you go to 12 pubs and you have a pint, and you had to wear a Christmas jumper. And I went to buy one. Couldn't find one. There was only one shop in the UK selling them. There were £70. I thought it was a £25 or €25 thing. And I couldn't find one online. Ended up in Dunn Stores, big department store, and they're stapling decorations to a jumper that I bought that night. So I didn't have to have a shop when I went into the thing for that way when that's where I make my first Christmas jumper. So I straight away had gone, there's going to be all over the UK and Ireland, people are going to be looking for these. And when I went into the pub, my Christmas jumper was the best, even though it was stapled and it was manually done. So it was like,
and the cheapest probably.
Definitely the cheapest. And like I was even borrowing the stapler from them in there, stapling this thing, decoration. But everyone remembered that jumper. And so it was in my head, and I took it as a sign when they said, look, 30, that said 35%, I think was whacked off my salary. It was like,
okay,
marking 65 hours a week for fucking, so it was suddenly what are you waiting for right now? Like this, what are you waiting for? So that was the jump I had to make.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I never went to college and at all. And I remember when I left school at 17 or 18 years of age, my father wanted me to become an engineer. And I just knew I would hate it. I just absolutely knew I would hate it. And I remember him saying to me, you'll regret it if you don't go to college. I haven't regretted it yet, but I may yet regret it. I haven't regretted it yet. But yet I've sent my 3 sons to college. So I wonder what that is, because I'm conscious that if we've a young audience listening, particularly an audience who see themselves as entrepreneurs, I'm reluctant to discourage people from a good education, but I think you're right in saying it doesn't necessarily prepare you to own and run a business.
No, like if I look back, what I should have done when I went to college was set up a business while I was there.
Yeah.
Because what I would
That
have
would have been
had
the
is
perfect
access.
combination. Yeah.
100%, because you have access, right? You've all these young people who
Yeah.
will test stuff and buy stuff.
Yeah.
And I see entrepreneurs now, and they start in college, and a lot of them leave, during it, but
Yeah.
they've picked up, like all my best mates now are mates I met at college.
Yeah.
But the tools are there, right? So you have every sort of incentive, you have every sort of grant or funding available to you while you're in college. Yeah, like our college was 12 hours a week, and we went to two. Like,
Yeah.
we've all the time in the world. Like,
Yeah.
it don't have to be in the bar. So I wouldn't
Agree. Yeah. You don't have to be in a bar. Exactly.
Discourage people from doing it, but just I was doing it wrong. I honestly thought I would go to college and they would show me how to set up business. I honestly thought that.
Yeah.
Like, it must have been greener than green, but that's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think is then what you discovered is that the only way to learn how to run a business is to actually do it. So we talk about Christmas jumpers, and I'm aware that most of our audience are not Irish, and so I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about Christmas jumpers, and he thought, are those people that jump up and down? And I said, no, sweatshirts. So we just need to clarify that. We talk about it. We talk about Christmas jumper. It's a Christmas sweatshirt. Are they a thing over the rest of the world? I assume they are at this stage.
Huge in the US.
Huge
so
in the
80% of our business is in the US. We make a lot more stuff, so we can still make Christmas sweaters.
Yeah.
So it's huge in the US. And they're like, I started by I went to China, and I had seen Home Alone and I'd seen National Lampoons, and they were always wearing Christmas sweaters. If you look back at those movies.
Yeah.
So I thought there would be a factory in China making Christmas sweaters for the American market. I'd go over and buy them, be able to bring them back. I didn't realize China doesn't work like that. So I searched everywhere, all over the knitwear city in China, and couldn't find them. So yeah, it's but they're a huge thing, and they're a huge thing everywhere. They're huge in Germany, huge in France. Not so big in Ireland as much anymore in the UK, but they're huge around different.
Well, I know we're heading into December, and I know that if we walk through the stores in Ireland now, and probably I'm in London next week, and it'll probably be the same. We're going to see these everywhere. All the big department stores will be selling this. People will be wearing them. But back in, was it 2010? That wasn't the case.
No.
And you spotted an opportunity here that the big retailers had not spotted, which I find incredible. So you spotted this opportunity, and you just jumped ship. Did you do any research into how you would do this, or did you just go, let's jump?
I like to think back now. I had no research done. My dad.
So this is not a school for business today.
No, like this is like, but it was one of those that because I was in consulting, I had this mad level of confidence that, oh no, sure, it'll be fine. I'll just go.
Yeah, I can do this. Yeah,
and it'll be no problem at all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure any idiot can do this. And I was that any idiot. So
yeah, you felt like an idiot pretty soon. Yeah. I'm the idiot. I get it. Yeah.
I had managed to meet the ambassador for China to
Ireland. So the plan, just let me understand this. The plan was quite simply, I leave KPMG, no worries. I will now fly to China, find a factory that sells the jumpers, bring them back, job done, retired multimillionaire. That was the business plan, was it?
You pretty much summed it up. That was my first pitch. Yeah. So I went to the right city. I got this advice of where the city was, but that was all I had. And in 2010, I went over there, and like I didn't see a white person for the full 2 weeks I was in China. Like it was.
But you'd no plan. You just landed in this city.
Yeah. Well, even when I got to the city, I
obviously you're fluent in Chinese.
Oh yeah,
perfect.
Perfect. I went to the ticket office with the name of the city that she had given me. The lady had given me with the name written on it. And I went up there and I handed them that. And they gave me a ticket. I had no idea. It doesn't have any English in the ticket. So
you have no idea where you're going. You can't communicate with anyone.
I'm pointing it. And
wow.
Like I'm on the train. Now, this sounds made up.
That is a superhuman level of confidence I have to give you.
Stupidity, right? But there were people with chickens coming onto the train and stuff. So like I have no idea.
Yeah.
It was a 7-hour train ride, right? From Shanghai. And Shanghai was fine. Like, but this is when
and you were traveling alone?
Completely alone. It was, I had my first iPhone, maybe I'd had a second one, but I had my first iPhone, and I'd never been as grateful because I arrived in the city, I had no hotel booked, and I I was like, oh, there'll be hotels.
You didn't even think
Like
it might be a good idea
like
to
I'm
put
20, I
hotels.
was 27, 28. Like I wasn't 19, and
You weren't
so
backpacking. Yeah.
no. And I was over there and I was like, found a hotel, got some, and yeah, and then just walked through all the factories to try and find,
To find a
again,
photo
nobody had
factory with a sign
and
that
I'm
says,
holding up
"Hi
the,
Ross, we do Christmas jumpers."
yeah, exactly. Pretty much. I'm walking through and just looking, and
So how
it
did
was
you
very,
find a factory?
so there was no factory that made them. So I went back to the hotel room, worked online at 99 Designs, and we created our first design sweater. I created first design sweater. Found an agent while I was there. Again, I was on Google, right? Or wasn't allowed to be on Google. It was I think Yahoo was
Yeah.
still working there. Google wasn't working. But I had an agent. And they brought me around to a few factories, and then we found it, and I got an order to production. This is in a 2-week period. So like the level of confidence might have been mad, but it actually, it's doing all right so
Yeah,
far. I got
yeah.
an order to production.
So you
I
did the
designed
design online. You found the agent, and the agent took you to a factory that
the
would.
factory,
Yeah.
and we made it. And
Okay.
so I went back to Ireland.
Did you have to
Um,
pay up front for these at that point?
Yeah, so I paid for the sample. So it
Okay.
was a couple of grand for the sample. And like, but back then, right, it was, you're talking $3 a sweater. So it wasn't a
Yeah.
lot of money
Yeah.
they were looking
Okay.
for.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not that anymore. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever were that, but that's what
Yeah.
they were told me. And so I arrived back, and it was in September. The order fell through. So I was sitting there, I had no job, no money.
So which order fell through?
The jumper order. So it fell through. Rice didn't arrive. So
Oh, it didn't arrive. Oh, so the
they kept
shipping
doing
due.
samples. They
Oh,
kept doing samples, and they were terrible, right? Because I
okay.
wanted stuff that
Okay. So you never got
flashed.
the stock.
Never got it. So I was sitting there. I had no job, no money, and no jumpers.
Yeah.
So
And you were making Christmas jumpers. So once we got to the 23rd or 4th of December, you were out of business for another 11 months. Yeah. Yeah.
So my brother
I'm
had
seeing all
just-
the foundations of a great business plan.
great
here.
entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my brother had just left college, and he set up with me, and we both. So I said, look, we'll make some sweatshirts this year, which are just printed sweatshirts with the same designs on. And I found some flashing noses online, and we found a way of sticking them to the sweater. And I ordered 2,200 sweatshirts, and we stuck the noses to them.
Mm.
And they were in our sitting room at home in my parents' house, where we have Christmas every year. So
Yeah.
it was like, okay, I'm not sure if you've ever seen a box of Christmas jumpers, but 2,200, and it doesn't sound like a lot now. It's a lot of
Oh,
jumpers.
yeah.
So the room was
So when
full.
did they arrive? When did they land?
So they were in, we got them printed in Dublin. So they were ready to go in November, kind of mid-November.
And had you somewhere to sell these? Were you selling them online? Were you going to
Online.
retail?
So
Yeah.
straight away I was thinking UK market.
Yeah.
Ireland is small, and I was thinking UK market. I had a small office. I'd take it just off one of the main streets in Dublin, off Grafton Street.
Mhm.
So we had a small office on the 3rd floor, and I was working out of there. And so we're, within a few weeks we were ranking online, and we were selling quite a lot. But
So-
people heard I was there, so suddenly they were coming up the 6 flights of stairs to
Mm.
buy these jumpers
Wow.
off me. And within a few,
So there was there was a market definitely
it
for
was
this.
huge, and we were €25, right? When everyone else was £70,
Yeah.
we were €25. Someone was coming for the night out.
Mm.
Literally, we'd do 6 boxes every day. We'd come out, and we'd stick the noses on as we were going, and we just couldn't keep them in stock. And it was amazing fun. Like, I remember driving down at the end of the year and going, I drove down where they all do the 12 pubs, and
Yeah.
every single group was wearing one of our
Wow.
jumpers. I was like,
This entrepreneurship,
this
it's
is
easy.
amazing.
I've nailed it. I'm a master. Job done.
I didn't think it was easy, but what I did,
No.
what I
Yeah.
did was I loved that I'd created a product and that wasn't there. The people were getting great crack out of
Yeah.
it, great fun out of it, and that it was just the energy was.
But look,
was great.
you'd gotten a plane, you'd gone to China, you'd walked the streets to find the product. It hadn't landed, and you and this is business. And you came up with a plan B, and then you were sitting there as the end of the year came in, going, "Well, this worked out. This is. I mean, I can't keep these in the shelves." So year one was a great success for you.
So then we 2 years. Then I was doing a bit of contracting in the off season, but I'd finally managed to get production on proper knitwear and stuff. So we got all that done. The next 2 years we grew pretty well, and we had a few pop-ups. We had 2 or 3 pop-ups, and we'd sell a lot online. We'd sell to over 40 countries.
40 countries.
Yeah,
Wow.
we sold to 40 countries. So they were going to Ghana.
And you had China sorted this stage. They were coming in. It was all good.
Well, we were making them in Lithuania. We had
Okay.
found a supplier, but yeah, we were paying quite a lot for them. But they were 40. They crept up to 40 euro at this stage. But 2013, I decided, look, I think we're ready to make that first jump before proper scale. So I took a small bit of money in. I had a bit of money, but we took a small bit of money in, and I took 10 grand from 5 of my mates and 10 grand from family. And we went into production. I think we made 10,000 Christmas jumpers, and we also had 2,000 left over from previous years. You'd always have a few left over. And my brother started selling into shops or retail stores in Ireland. And so he was a great salesman. So he sold a lot into those stores. So we had a good bit that we knew we could sell, and the rest was done. And this was like really testing the market to see, are we ready to scale? And everything was good. I'd be ordering. I walked into Penny's or Primark, which is a huge discount department store in Ireland. So similar to a H&M type store. And we went in and went in mid-November, and I've never seen as many Christmas jumpers in my life. They had every knitwear. Lots were very similar to our designs. So they had been inspired by our designs.
Yeah.
And they were 10 euro each, and we were buying them for 13 plus VAT. So we were buying them for 16. So I knew we had a problem.
Yeah.
Subsequently realized Ireland has a population of 4.5 million. Penny's landed 1 million Christmas jumpers in Ireland that year.
Wow.
So they were selling them at 10. We were selling them at 40, and they were similar designs because they were.
And they were a huge retailer with stores all over the place,
all over the world. Yeah, all over UK and Ireland. So I knew that we knew a problem. So we had a bad.
But you had all this stock sitting here ready to go, and you'd all this cash invested in it that you'd borrowed from friends and family. People had invested in it.
Yeah, and like small money now when I think back, right? But it was like at the time it was people's savings, right? And 2000.
It's not small money when you're 30 years of age and you don't have anything else. I mean, it's all. I mean, if you don't have the check in the bank to cover it, then it's not small money.
It's not your money.
No.
So I wouldn't have seen it even back then as big money or anything. But I suppose the problem we had was the stores couldn't sell them and then wouldn't pay us for them, so sent them back to us. And we couldn't chase them, we couldn't sue them or whatever, because it just wasn't worth the time, even though we hadn't sold them on sale or return. So I had 8,000 Christmas jumpers left at the end of the year, Christmas sweaters left at the end of the year. I owed the manufacturer 80,000 euro. It was a small
80,000 euro.
80,000 euro. And I owed my mates 60 grand. So it was about 150 all in. And we had 17,000 euro in a PayPal account. And then PayPal froze.
Okay.
So the small bit of money we had, and still never be able to find a reason why they froze it. We eventually got it back 9 months later. But so I was then calling my friends, calling family, or calling manufacturer and saying,
I'm in trouble.
I have a lot of jumpers, but I've no money. So that was.
Describe that moment to me. I mean, if you can, how many years ago? It's obviously
it's 10 years ago. So
10 years
ago.
So I mean, describe what that was like for you 10 years ago. If you're standing back in Ross's shoes 10 years ago, what the hell did that feel like?
It was the most humiliating, embarrassing thing that ever happened to me. And it's like calling people up. And I had a big ego at the time as well, right? Because I thought I could do anything.
Yeah.
And I built this up and I told people, and I was sure I could do it. And I couldn't trade my way out of it. Like, Christmas jumpers are no good.
Yeah, that business was over. I mean, that business was gone.
So I was like, I was calling around people, and I was talking to the manufacturer, and he was really decent to me and stuff. And I was like, I don't have the money. And it never happened to me before that I didn't have access to cash like that. I was always able to borrow, or always able to, I was always really.
But you didn't have a job, and you didn't have a viable business.
So I was sitting there going, like, it was honestly, it was just, and I still, I think now, like, there was one of the guys that was getting married and needed 10 grand for their wedding. Yes, there's all this kind of stuff going on.
I find it interesting that you said it was humiliation, because I think one of the biggest fears we have as entrepreneurs when we're starting anything is the fear of failure. But if you can fail in privately and quietly and nobody knows about it, it's not that bad. But when you fail publicly and people say, and I think, you know, I heard someone say the other day that only 2% of people are truly ambitious. And I don't know where that number came from, but it suggests that that most people don't have the level of drive and ambition to go and start a business. And all of those 98% of people, because I'm sure you've heard them and I've heard them, will tell us all the reasons it won't work, why you're better off staying in your safe job and all those things. And it requires a level of confidence, arrogance, maybe even stupidity for those of us that take the risks to do things that other people don't do. But a big part, I think, for any of us is that fear of all of those people who go, I told you so. I mean, that's just, I've experienced it also. And it really, it's just an awful thing, because you begin to doubt yourself. It's just an awful thing.
Yeah, like the only thing I will say when I look back at it, right, I didn't fall out with anyone. Everybody was really decent how they did it.
Yeah.
Nobody said, what kind of fucking idiot are
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
pardon the language, but what kind of an idiot?
Yeah,
are
you felt it worse than what they were saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I had the next dose of humiliation, which was I now needed a job, right? Because I wasn't going to go insolvent to not pay people. I wanted to pay people back.
Yeah.
So I rang up the partner in KPMG and I said, do you have any contract work?
Yeah.
And he said, when can you start, or when are you looking to start? Then the 2nd of January.
Yeah.
So that was so I'd go back into the firm then. The firm were great to me, but they brought me back in. Now, everyone knew then that, like, he's back now, having done this.
Having messed up royally.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were people going, but actually, when I think back, nobody would have given nobody would have given a crap about it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. And now it wouldn't bother me hugely at all.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, because I thought it was brilliant at everything, and it very clearly wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, having said that, it was a great idea. I mean, it was a great idea, but I suppose something changed in the market which you can't control. So you go back to KPMG, you take your job back, and what now? You start about paying all this debt back.
Yeah, so I borrowed 30 grand personally and 30 grand in the company after a couple of months of work that the bank could see. So I got the manufacturer paid off by June. And then I had the lads paid off fairly quickly after that. Just worked really hard. Now, some of them kind of wanted to keep money in and they weren't in a rush for it. But the rest.
So you didn't close down this wasn't Roddy at this stage?
No, it wasn't. I left the company run. My key thing was everyone got paid. And when I think back now, it was really good that happened to me then, because the following year I would have borrowed 700,000-800,000. I would have been going out raising money.
Of course.
Doing a big thing. And that wouldn't have been recoverable, whereas I could do it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I spent the next few years contracting. I kept the business small. We had a side bit of the business that was kind of working, which was custom Christmas sweaters for people. So companies had approached us and said, can you make 7-Up, Kane, Nando's, Kane, the big brands, can you make them? So I kept that running on the side, but it was a tiny bit. And then all the way to 2018, I was just building up a bit of cash. I was getting promoted. I was a contractor, so I wasn't fully working within the firm. I was getting promoted. I was earning a lot of money, and the money was getting better and better and better. And I was like, where is this going to end? So 2018, I made.
Where is this going to end? Because that's a big problem for you. The money's getting better and better.
I was getting more and more tied in, right? And I was like,
yeah, I know. Yeah,
you know.
So you still had that desire to get back out. I'm getting the impression you saw it as a temporary fix.
The fact that I wouldn't even go back as an employee, kind of was like it was my last bastion of holding on to. I'm an entrepreneur. I was an independent contractor. I did
Oh,
work
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
KPMG, but so that, and I, like, you might see that as a subtlety, but in my head, that was like, I'm not
That
an
was
employee.
significant. Yeah,
Nobody did a performance review of me.
yeah.
Nobody, just,
You were self-employed,
I was
effectively,
self-employed.
with what? With one customer.
Customer, yeah.
That's
And
fine.
not bit other work stuff would come in, but
But
yeah,
paying you extremely well and paying you reliably.
paying me reliably,
Yeah.
and I had no stock to
Yeah,
hold.
exactly.
But yeah, so in 2018 I had kind of come up with this idea. I worked at over 100 companies, and every company I went, like huge companies like Dell and Paddy Power Betfair, those kind of companies, they always gave me merch or swag, and it was always terrible. I was a big fan of branded stuff.
Mm.
And I was trying to figure out why they were giving me this terrible stuff. Why were they not making better? So I started Googling and looking, and I realized the industry hadn't changed in 60 years. 60 years ago, they were printing onto terrible product,
Yeah.
giving it away for free, and people loved it. Right?
Low cost shirts and
It's free.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's all low cost stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So like your parents will love that stuff, right?
Mm.
Now, nobody wants free stuff. They want good stuff. And if it's free, great. But nobody wants stuff that they're going to throw in the garbage, right? Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and gone, with my experience of doing the sweaters, I had some experience in small batch manufacturing, and you can actually make stuff from scratch. If you're making tens of thousands of units with the factories, they will make small batches of stuff for you. You know, that's fully branded and fully made from scratch, right down to the label on your, you know, on the neck of your collar and all that. They'll do all that. You can do it for 100 units or 50 units or whatever. And that was the idea of Rudy, that we would become, I was always really passionate about the environment. And could we link it and plant trees and make better stuff for people, and link that with all my experience in the companies? Could we sell into those companies and start to make merch?
And at what stage did you make the jump again?
So I left in 2018 and started reading.
Had you a better business plan this time? I'm just asking.
Had money.
You had money. That makes for a great. That's
when I left the first
I mean, this
time,
is the only reason people go to business, is because they run out of cash. Nothing else.
Yeah.
You don't need profits. You don't need customers. You just need cash.
I had two things. One of them was the model was way better, right? Because we made it stuff to order, which meant I never had stock, right?
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Lesson learned there. Yeah.
I never have to carry stock. I'm like, you hear me.
And you were niche. You're in a boutique business. So Pennies or Walmart or Dunn Stores, any of these people, they weren't going into this business.
No, and the other, like, I made a huge mistake in Christmas Jump. The biggest mistake I made was I didn't start in the US. So I started in Ireland and the UK, and I thought I was thinking big. With Rudy, we went straight into the US because you can operate in the niche in there, and you can sustain if the economy changes or something changes, you have enough business there to do it. So we straight away went into the US. We have very few customers in Ireland. We have 4 customers in Ireland who are very big customers, but we don't really chase Irish customers. We look for the big. So within a few weeks, we were getting orders from, like, we had Hershey's and Hallmark, and, you know, like the biggest brand in the world were ordering straight away. And
did you have to go out and chase that business, or whether
everything was inbound?
Everything was inbound. Wow.
Yeah.
So you had set up a website or a platform, and you were marketing, and it was all coming inbound. Did you just start this off by yourself?
I did. My partner Marie worked with me on it.
Yeah. But sorry, your brother had been involved in the previous business.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he having gone through 2013, he also joined KPMG, and he is a director, very successful in there now.
He said enough is enough.
Never wants to be. He's the Christmas jumper guy in there, and known as the Christmas jumper guy. But he loves the story and all that. But he never wants to run his own business again. Never ever again. So
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we set it up, and so we started with some niche products, and we started with sweaters and Hawaiian shirts and stuff like that, and we've been just growing since that.
Yeah. So the reason I find it such an amazing story is that I mean, you really got knocked down. You really got kicked in the stomach, and I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed that you managed to get back up, go at it again. I came across something recently. Maybe someone said it to me about how long it takes you to get a new customer, and it takes, I don't know. I mean, you know, 5 calls or something, and that 98% of business people or salespeople stop after 2 or 3 or something. And I think it's kind of the same with business. That, I mean, 95% of new businesses will fail. So for all the business that are registered today or in this year, when we come back in 5 years' time, 95% of those businesses will fail. And I largely think it's because most people will stop when they face a challenge like what you faced.
Yeah. I think if I didn't have to do this, I wouldn't do it. There's a lot easier ways to make really good money. You can go off and climb a corporate ladder and make millions euro a year, very, without the stress of this. Have to do this. Most entrepreneurs
What does that mean? You have to do it.
I like
Like
if I got up
fundamentally what drives you to sit in that chair and be
and
the owner and the driver behind Roddy?
can't take someone telling me what to do. Like that's the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
Someone telling me I don't react well to it.
Yeah.
Every morning, and I'm incredibly linked to the environmental stuff. That's
Yeah.
my purpose. I want to plant 1 billion trees in my life, and I want to, I'm incredibly linked to the trees specifically. But if I went off and I was earning, millions euro a year as a CEO versus if I was earning, €1 million a year as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, I'd much rather take the entrepreneur one because it's done it. Like you built it yourself. Anybody can go and work up a corporate ladder and do it. And it's, it's anybody can do that. Starting something. Like, and I was one of those corporate guys, but hey, starting something, building it, that's special. There's something special.
It's funny. As I was asking you the question, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, why do I do it, and why have I done it for decades? And the answer is the exact same. I really never liked people telling me what to do. When I was a teenager, I was in the Boy Scouts, and I found that challenging. Anything where there's a set of rules, it's like I just assume they don't apply to me. It's interesting because I think this conversation demonstrates is that it is really challenging. I mean, it is really challenging, I think, to run your own business. Not everyone is cut out for it. But those who are successful stay the long. I mean, they take the long journey. They take the difficult roads. They overcome the obstacles. And but ultimately, it's interesting that you say it's just that freedom of not having people telling you what to do.
Yeah, and you sometimes wonder, right, because, how free are you now? I know you have it down to an absolute art. You're the guy I quote all the time, run a hugely successful business, a couple of hours a week, everything sorted, everything like really, really impressed by you're doing it. And I'm at an earlier stage of it, trying to get things up and running. But I get up in the morning and I'm like, right, this is great. I'm getting stuck into it. And while I always did enjoy the work and working with the team, there's nothing like running your own thing. And even when it's going wrong, like it's interesting the word failure, right? Because people are like always on about failure. I never looked 2013 as failure until recently, actually. I never looked at it as just like, I never thought of it as failure. I was just like, oh, that didn't work out. The reason I didn't shut the company down was probably because everyone got paid back. So as far as I'm concerned, that was, now when you look at it objectively, it's complete failure. But that word is really linked with not doing something and not finishing something. And finishing is not failure. I think finishing it just getting it done, getting everything sold, getting people paid back. That's the magic. And I think you can run away from the failure and be scared of failure, but if you don't actually mention it on, you never really think about it, to be honest.
But I mean, I agree that I always think of myself as very successful, and that's because I've defined what success is. I mean, I might list my version of success, and you go, "Oh, I don't consider that successful, Paul." And I go, "Well, that's great. Frankly, I don't give a shit." I've defined what success looks like for me, and so I've mapped a life out to live that way. But I, but I notice sometimes in conversation with people, I have failed. I mean, you've just told a great story it's a very inspiring story. Some people could say he failed. I think that certainly have failed more than most people. Uh, I've done some terrible investments. I don't invest in the stock market, but we over the past 18 months or so, we've had a phenomenal run. I'm heavily invested in the stock market, and so much I track it every day, but I don't look at the value. I just look at the charts. And for whatever reason, I got a note a couple of weeks ago that showed me where my account was, and I hadn't looked at it for maybe 12 months, and it had been an enormously good year, and I was going, wow. But I hadn't looked at it because I just hadn't looked at it. But the interesting thing is that um I have lost more money than most people I know. I mean, I guarantee you. I mean, I never went to college, but I've had a more expensive education than anyone I've ever met, because the amount of f ups I've made, the amount of stupid things, and the reason I give the investment story, it was a phenomenal good year. But I've been dabbling in the stock market for 20 years, and I have gone through half a dozen different approaches and methods that have lost me money that I thought was going to be the one, and it's just failed. I mean, I've lost money in property. I've had a number of businesses that haven't worked out. So if I was to write down the list of failures, it would be an impressive list. It would be an impressive. If I put the figure I've lost beside of that, it would be an impressive number. But I mean, it literally never crosses. It literally never crosses my mind, because I'm only in the zone of what I'm doing and what I want to do. And maybe people just get caught up in failure. I don't know what it is. I'm always conscious of I'm always conscious of people listening to the podcast, and what the lesson is in it for them. And I'm just wondering, as you look back of this, and you will no doubt be talking to two type of people who will listen to this: people who are already successful business owners but are just interested in the business conversation, and people who are you a dozen years ago thinking, I'd really like to start my own business. Is there a lesson you've taken
There-
from all this that you would pass on?
Yeah, there's one thing I always say, right? Because I get asked at least once a month about setting up a clothing company, because we make a lot of clothing.
Yeah.
And the first thing I always say is, don't buy stock. Right?
Don't buy
For your
stock.
first business, unless you're a really seasoned entrepreneur, do not buy stock. Because once you buy stock, it's great fun designing, it's great fun creating, it's great fun having the samples arrive, it's great fun making them, selling them different. And you've always got the wrong sizes, they're the wrong something.
Yeah.
And there's 100 people tell you, and it's so difficult to trade out of that when you've got the wrong stuff. So if you can do pre-orders and do whatever, but don't buy stock is first. And the second one, if you can find something you're passionate about and link the business to it in some way, it's a great way of bringing your team with you. Like we don't really report numbers. I used to hate when I was in the firm and they'd be like, we did X million this quarter. And I'd be like, so what? Like, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah.
So we track it around how many trees we plant.
Wow.
So we have a target of 2,500 trees a week that we're trying to plant.
Wow.
And we go every week. Now, 2,500, right? And we explain to people, we go like huge companies in the world to come around and say, we planted 10,000 trees this year. And like huge companies. And you're like, we're planting that every week. We're planting 2,500. And people are actually fired up by it, and they'll come with you on that journey, because you can't pay as well as, a lot of the big places, but you can make a huge contribution to our company and make a huge contribution to where we're going and a huge contribution to the planet. And linking that to something that you're passionate about is, it's just because it's so hard to bring people in. It's just money, and it's just capitalism. Like, it's so hard to bring people along with that.
I think also that the journey of entrepreneurship is very challenging. That's the truth. It could be very rewarding, but it's very challenging, and it's difficult to stick with something that you're not passionate about. I mean, if you just don't enjoy the work, if you don't enjoy the business you're in, if you're not buzzed, it's difficult when you find those challenges to keep to keep going. The thing that strikes me also is from selling to a mass market in Roddy now, you're very, very niched, and we're in a very, very different market, but we've very, very big competitors. And and I don't have the ability or maybe the interest to become an enormous company and compete on scales. No interest to me. But I describe it like they're the Hilton hotels. There's one in every, there's one in every city. They're all over the world, and they do something that I cannot do. I can't offer you that level of service in every city in the world. But we're that boutique hotel that you fly to Dublin, London, or Paris, and you walk into that hotel, and they go, "Hello, Mr. Ryan. It's great to see you back." And they just have that level of service and something that is so special that the Hilton and the Radissons can't do. And I know as a small business owners, that's what we've done. We've stopped looking at what the big players do and gone, yeah, we can't do that, but they can't do what we've done. And I think that's what you've done as well. You've gone, I was doing something that the big players can do, but how can they do this? They can't.
And how do you describe that to clients?
We like clients to experience it. Is the answer, because we talk about service and we talk about the fact that we care about them, and we do because we're a small business, and the people that work for us are very passionate about it, and we look after customers very, very well. And so what we will do is we will encourage clients to give us an opportunity to experience what it's like working for us, because just like you, there are other people that will sell what we sell, and we say what's different about us is that you're going to be really valuable to us because we're a small business, and how we will look after you will be special to us. And we encourage people to try us, and then we do live up to that experience. But that experience is mapped right throughout the company. It's not just our sales, it's our warehousing people, it's our operations, it's our purchasing. Every part of the company endeavors to do that. So it's worked for us. Ross, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've heard the story many times. I'm always amazed by your resilience and your ability to get through it. And you tell it with a smile on your face. And I suppose you can laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny at the time. Ross, it's been a pleasure, and I really think our listeners will get huge value from this. So thank you very, very much.
Loved it, Paul. Thanks a lot.